everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reluctant Hero podcast. My name is Pauline Dugold. I'm a peak performance and creativity coach, and I have been making this podcast with a desire to inspire others by presenting the stories of heroes' journey and the challenges that we all face on our path and how we overcome it, and stories to inspire you to continue going because we're all on our own hero's journey. We all have hero inside, and sometimes we find ourselves reluctant towards going on that adventure, going on that journey where we're going to encounter obstacles, adversaries, but also guides. And at the end, when we reach the destination of that journey, we come through a gate of a sort and we become different people. We are transitioned and we transformed through that process. So it is my desire to highlight this journey and give guidance and inspiration to those who find themselves also on that journey. And I interview guests on this podcast that share their own reluctance and how they have overcome that. And on this episode today, we have a wonderful guest. Her name is Kim. Kim is an entrepreneur. She is a mother. She's also a trainer and a coach and many other things. And I will let her introduce herself and we will see where this podcast goes. Kim, please let us know who you are.
Hi, Pauline. It's so great to be here. Thank you for having me. I am, like you said, an elite mentorship trainer, an archetypal relationship pod facilitator, an entrepreneur coach who helps women and men start and scale their business, earning generational wealth while getting healthier in the process.
Wow, I love that. It is so important to continue growing and learning. And I've known you for quite some time, and we've been together and learning on this journey of self-discovery and self-development, and also learning how to guide others and how to support others in their journey. And so I'm curious to know how you arrived at becoming all those things, the coach, the trainer, the entrepreneur. What prompted you to start on that journey in the first place?
I've always found myself as a group person and a team player, and I was always focused on positivity and looking for the bright side of things. As a young child, I was always joining the groups, the teams, volleyball, the basketball, the optimist club, the math club, the choir, like all the things where you don't do anything by yourself. You're always on a team. So I knew that being part of a team and growing that way was always part of my path. Growing up, I had three brothers, and being the middle child that was the only girl had, I think, a very interesting lead to my journey. That could be where my reluctancy comes in, because I was the girl that was always told, oh, you're going to be the goalie this time, and you're going to be the back catcher, and you're a girl, you can't run, and all these like boy things. And I was always like, oh my gosh, look at Kim, she's such a nerd, she's in the math club, and she's the optimist. Oh my gosh, look at Kim, look at like. And so I feel like now I'm like, don't look at me because it's going to be like poking your finger, making fun of me kind of deal. So I think maybe that's where my reluctancy came from. But I had always liked to learn. Even as an adult, I was interested in self-development. And every time there was a course available at work, I would take it. And for 20 years, I climbed the corporate ladder, starting like from the warehouse all the way up to the procurement lead. So I felt like I've always been in growth and development and enjoyed doing that kind of stuff. So I think that's what led me to doing this. Then in 2015, I went through a divorce and I thought, oh, I need more self-care. It opened my eyes to looking at taking care of myself versus being a wife and a mother full time and working and doing everything. I thought it's time for me to look inside and bring out my gifts. 2022 lockdown came and well, I found myself with an extra 3 hours a day because I wasn't commuting every day to and from the office. So I'm like, what am I going to do with these 3 hours? So I started signing up for courses and taking more like mindset changing courses and like spiritual courses and life skills courses and like workout courses, like all these different courses from all these different mentors. I was started overwhelming myself because they all started combining with each other. And I was like, I need one program, and that was it. And I found I lost my dad actually first in at the end of 2021. And then the beginning of 2022, I lost my mom. So I was like lost. And then I found Peter Sage, and his elite mentorship program was group centric. You had an accountability partner, and it was all of those courses combined. Like it was the health game, the relationship game, the money game. It was like all the games of life. And I was like, I need to start playing this to win it. So that's what got me started. And then he introduced me to Rory, and I went down that relationship path and learned all that stuff and continued on with like helping other people learn this. So I was like, sign me up, I'll be a facilitator. And I started doing that. And I was like, okay, I'm paying for all these courses. I need the wealth to start coming to me. And then one of the other elite mentorship trainers that we worked with had this opportunity showing up, and it was all about being healthier and not vibrating, but penetrating into your cells, all the hydration and making money while you're doing it. And they do all the mindset training and coaching. And I was like, I'm in. I love doing that stuff. Like that's what brings me joy.
I love
Teaching,
that story.
educating, all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. Insatiable desire to learn,
Yes.
community orientation, and wanting to be better all the time. I think a lot of people were catalyzed into action when the lockdown started, and they became all of a sudden aware of all the things that were not working in their life, all the things that they could improve, and they all of a sudden had time. We've heard it about many people and systems that got changed because of that. So I have been having a lot of conversations with different people who were also prompted to take different steps in their life in the last 4 years and shift to be more, to serve more. And the community orientation always kind of leads towards developing oneself further into becoming a leader of that community. So it's interesting to see how your childhood orientation towards being a group oriented grew into the desire for guiding and coaching others.
Yes. It's been like a journey that seems to all fit together. And now my reluctancy needs to be broken, and I need to actually get out there and start marketing and sharing all of this with people, because I feel like it brings so much happiness and joy and fulfillment in serving others. And growth and contribution are key, right? So
Absolutely. And I've actually heard that it's the funny thing that you mentioned how in childhood you had this extra attention and you grew reluctant to show your face because of that. And now you see the need for that. I've actually heard a lot of other women also describe this reluctance towards showing their face, towards promoting themselves in the public sphere in order to promote even their products. So I'm actually curious to delve a little bit deeper into that because I think it's a very relevant subject. There's those of us who want to help others, and the word help kind of have been maybe given a bad rep for the aspect of helping, because if you're helping somebody, it means that they need something, and it just puts this into this kind some kind of a weird power dynamic, helping others. And so some people prefer not to use that word at all. But for the community oriented people, I think that word really means a lot. So I'm curious to know, what is your perception of help versus working with people, or versus supporting them, or versus guiding? How does this language really affect your view of the community?
I've actually never really thought of it as a word that people wouldn't want to use. I feel like I need help and I accept help. So from my standpoint, I didn't ever put the different connotation to it, if that makes sense. Guiding, leading, helping, serving, supporting. I feel like it's all in the same realm, but at the same time, it's offering my knowledge, my skills, my experience to show other people that what's possible and what transformation can actually happen when you change your mindset and you start taking actions, even if it's like small steps, like little and often, like keep going, be consistent with it.
That is true. And that is interesting that you've never considered any bad sides to the word help. But because I know that you know the archetypal dynamics, because we studied them ad nauseum, I wonder if you can look at the warrior aspect and see how would they perceive the word help.
I think that from a warrior perspective, they would feel like that's their job to do. They wouldn't feel like they needed help, but that's what they would want. But they wouldn't want to call it help, probably. So I think you're right. They would
I
want to be supported, but not have any sort of knowledge that it's being supported. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it is interesting. The reason I bring it up is because the community orientation is the lover archetype, and the opposite is the warrior. So warriors never want to ask for help. They would offer their help, but they would never ask for it. Whenever the other side, the community oriented people, are all about that. They're all about collaboration, working together, helping each other garden, helping each other raise kids, whatever. And the other side just kind of gives and provides and never asks for anything in return. And so I wonder if it is easier for those people who associate themselves with a warrior archetype to promote themselves in their work. What do you think?
I think you're absolutely right. They would totally promote themselves and go out there. Like, for example, my husband is a warrior. He's not afraid to step up and say what he's doing. He advertises his business word of mouth, like however he has to. He's just out there and seen. And I'm obviously the opposite. But at the same time, yeah, if I ask him, if I say, "Oh, do you want me to help you?" He's like, "What? So you can take the credit for it? I got this." So I see where you're coming from with that word now. Because he's
Yeah,
like,
isn't it fascinating how that one aspect that really keeps the community oriented people kind of stuck? Oh, I don't want to talk about myself. I just want to help behind the scenes. Meanwhile, the other people just like blatantly talking about themselves, not the problem, not the care in the world. And I know that you know that the challenge of the lover archetype is step forward to be not running away from the confrontations and kind of hard challenging discussions. And the challenge for the other side is to be more softer. And so I wonder if how you perceive that to be in relationship to self-promotion.
I think that it absolutely falls into play. There's more that I need to step into. So once I start taking that bridge and bringing out the warrior in me, I will be far more transformed than I am now. And that's the brilliance of repeating the course. Like, it's a daily thing. Like, you don't just take it and know it. You take it, you know it, and then you have to implement it, and action steps every day. And with the practicing and the ongoing pod group support, like, it's going to transform me in no time. It's done so much already just with my relationship with my husband. And it's been like super fantastic. Like I honestly thought I was everything because I was so nice and so kind and so helpful and so loving. And he was just like out there, like, where did you come from? You have no manners, like you're rude. And now I understand, like, he's just upfront, like straight up, like my meal isn't cooked the way I just asked you to cook it. Take it back. And I'd be like, no, I'll just eat it. So like you totally see the different dynamics, but at the same time, now I understand it. So it's so much more relieving to know that like we're on the same page here. We're all looking out for the same outcome. We just have a different download, different operating system, but it can be respected from all sides because it's understandable now.
Yes, absolutely. And for anybody wondering, we're talking about the archetypal dynamics between the four archetypes as they show up themselves in human system, which is the warrior, lover, king, and the magician. And so some people have probably heard about it, and I have spoken about it in some other episodes. But my point here is that the challenges that people find in business usually are related to the biggest challenges of their own archetype. So the business then becomes the amplification of who they are and who they're becoming or trying to become. And so it is interesting to note that a lot of women who are going into the business, they're going out of the desire for supporting community, but their challenge is to embody the opposite side of which they're not familiar with, which then brings the challenges in marketing, challenges in sales, challenges in self-promotion, and all the aspects that are counterparts and masculine archetypes out there are excellent at. Some people out there and some men are really good at sales and self promotion and driving their business forward and getting the revenue. And sometimes I look at those people like, how are you doing it? And what is it else that I'm supposed to do that I'm not doing? But it all is a journey of self development that then shows up itself in business.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating how it's becoming more and more clear to me, especially the more I have conversations with people. So I'm curious to know, what do you think are the next steps for you, like in the immediate future, as it pertains to your business and self-promotion, that you can directly relate to your archetypal work?
I feel like what I need to focus on is bringing out the warrior in me. So for me, it'll be doing my meditations, following the getting my guides out so that I'm bringing forth speaking up front and promoting myself and being able to exude the warrior skills and thoughts and get out there and do it.
I love that.
No holds barred.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm curious to know, and I think other listeners might be as well, how would meditation and connecting to your guides help you become or embody more of the warrior archetypes?
Oh, okay. So with all of the different archetypes, they all have their own downloads, their own operating system. So you take all of the strengths from each archetype, and when you're in meditation, you go to each of them for different help in a different way. I guess help isn't the word for the warrior, but he will be there for me or she, whatever you choose to be. So you ask the questions that you need from them. And while you're sitting in silence, the answers will just flow, if that makes any sense. Like you'll get up and you'll be enlightened in some way. And then because you have quieted your mind, you're able to tap into your feelings and your intuition, and that will guide you into the next step.
That makes total sense to me. And I think we've heard a lot about meditation in recent years, that people kind of understand that quieting your mind helps. There's also, of course, a scientific reason why, because when you close your eyes, you lower your brain waves. And when you lower them, you have more access to creative thinking, visualization, and other aspects that lower the stress. And when you lower the stress, then you can think better and solve problems at a different level. So that is all kind of part of the design, part of the work, to sit still, to meditate, to go within, and to really look at the aspects. But one of the things that you also mentioned is intuition. And I'm curious to know how it shows up for you. What is intuition for you? What is it like?
Well, I feel that all that we need is already within us. And for me, my intuition is like a gut feeling or a heart feeling. So if I feel like it's a positive and it's leading me in the right direction, like I feel inspired to do it. Like I'm inspired to do this podcast. I'm very excited to meet with you and to talk about these things. So I mean, yes, it helps you make decisions, but it also guides you, because when I'm quiet and I meditate and I say, I need to move my business forward, what is my next step? And opportunities come up. Like this podcast, for example, came up, and I'm like, oh, I can talk about it. I can get practice opening up and talking about me and what I need to do and how I'm feeling and what I'm thinking and all those different things. So it's more of a like a feeling for me, like a guide to say, let's, instead of ordering online, let's go into the store today. Let's tour the mall, see what's out there, see who I run into, have a fascinating conversation, things like that.
That is very interesting to note that for women entrepreneurs, intuition plays a huge role in a business growth and business development, because there's one way of running a business, which is straightforward approach, planning, scheduling, strategizing, tactics, etc. But that is the old way of doing business. And what I've been noticing lately, the new way of doing business has been that which is full of intuition, feeling where the flow leads you that day specifically, so that it's almost kind of going day by day, not having that specific rigid structured plan which a warrior might have and that they would rely on, but capitalizing on the strengths of the fluidity, community, the connections, and inspiration. Being inspired is actually very important, I found, for the essence of the business to grow. And if you're able to kind of look at how your business is similar to you raising the kids, would there be any parallels to that?
I feel like raising the kids, I was more so the sovereign, because I was in charge. So I had to make all the appointments and get them to their classes on time, to their extracurriculars, to whatever they had to go to. And I had to make sure the car was full of gas, that their passports were ready, they had enough to pack for them. Like all those kind of things, which is more of a sovereign. So I can do those things. I can organize, I can plan, I can do all of that. But is that the way I want to run my business? In some aspects, you have to do it that way, but I like the intuition and the flowing part. And I guess the same with the kids, like the intuition and the flowing part. If we feel like going camping this weekend, let's go camping this weekend. I was not someone who was, oh, we can't go camping because we have this and this and this planned. It was like, hey, sure, let's do it. I was more of a spare of the moment kind of mom. And same with like if their friends wanted to come over, If their friends want to come over, yeah, let's have a pool party, bring them all over. It wasn't like, oh no, we have to make sure the house is clean, we have to make sure this is done and this is done. I'm like, yep, let's do it. So I feel like I kind of am the same, but there are still, let's make sure we have enough food if they're all coming over, that kind of stuff. But
Yeah,
does that make
totally
sense?
makes sense. And yeah, it is kind of almost kind of a shortcut for listeners that when to let you know that when people become parents, they all of a sudden go and shift from one of the archetypes, whichever was their primary, into the sovereign, which is governing archetype, which is required to make sure that the family works. And the opposite of that is the magician, which is where inspiration lives, which is where flexibility lives as well. And that's where playfulness and allowance for things to be spontaneous also resides. So, as you've noticed, we just mentioned all four archetypes and how they interrelate in the process, not just living, but business building as well. So, you need a little bit of magic in your process to create that idea, to find that inspiration and drive into that desire for a certain idea. And then you need to go into the sovereign to make sure that all things are kind of structured and working together. And then you need to go into the warrior to make sure that you self promote and advertise and tell people about. But then when you actually get down to it, you need to go into the lover archetype in order to serve the customers, the clients. So all four aspects are in play. And for the building of the business from the female perspective, from the woman's side, it is capitalizing on that flow of energy, on that spontaneous change in directions, and being able to be strong enough and resilient enough to stay with it. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. The resilience is key. I mean, you have to have the resilience, and change is always going to be there. Like nothing ever stays the same except that everything changes. So we have to be able to be that way and not so rigid and stuck on how it's supposed to be. So that's why I feel like everything you need is within you. Like you have all of the archetypes in you. You just need to know that they're all there and they're all serving a purpose and when to call on which one. Because you don't want to call on the lover when there's a battle ahead. You don't want to call on the magician when you need like something ordered and you have to be in control, or you're leaving the country and you need a direct flight. So I think that's the great thing about the awareness of knowing that it's all there and when to call on each one.
Awareness goes into many different directions and many aspects. I mean, there's just this is the map essentially. One map of the archetypes is just one layer, but there's so many other patterns within us that because you and I, we've been doing this learning work, we know about all kinds of other maps that are involved in us understanding ourselves better, but awareness of what our predispositions are and what our weaknesses and what our strengths are helps really move forward in a much better, more cohesive way. And so while we are kind of inspired here and practicing, what do you think is unique about the way that you do business and how you show up for your clients with your background, with your experiences, and the combination of them?
I feel that with having all the diverse trainings, so the game of life, the game of the relationship game, the health game, the finance game, like all of the games are all put into one. I feel like taking the elite mentorship program and the trainer program, that helps consolidate all of them. And I've been through the program twice, so like reiterating, diving deep into it, making sure that it's ingrained, and then focusing on the relationship aspect, because I feel like with relationships, that's not just part of business. That's part of your whole life. It's part of you. Somebody who masters relationships doesn't let themselves down. So you're focusing on yourself at the same time as you're focusing on your connection with your partner, your children, your family, your clients, like your peers, your whole work group. So I feel like that is a huge part of the game of life.
Absolutely. Relationships, they are everywhere. It's relationship to self, relationship to others, relationship to health, to money, to the spirit, to the earth. Everything is created in relationship to others. That's why there's a theory of relativity. We define ourselves through the relating to others. Without it, we are nothing, essentially. So relationship is the key to better, more optimized life. And so, if there was one thing that you could optimize within yourself, kind of as you are trying to show up better and promote yourself more, what would be one main aspect that you would want to talk about more? That if you were to talk about that one thing, it would make all other things easier to also speak about.
I think the relationship with yourself is the key, because once you're happy with who you are, everybody can see it, and that attracts people to you. Like you're vibrating at a different level. And so once you fix how you think about yourself, how you talk to yourself, and feel worthy and accepting, and break through any limiting beliefs and barriers you have, I feel like you show up as a different person. And showing up is the key, because that's how you're going to attract the people, build the relationships, build the trust, and grow and develop with who you are and with your business.
I love that. Absolutely. Relationship to self is the key because everything starts within and then we project onto the world around us. And so I'm curious how all of your learnings and your experiences and the combination of who you are helps you get others to have a better relationship with themselves through your coaching, your training, your guidance, and other aspects of your business.
I think just being there and holding the space helps. Allowing people to talk and actively listen, understand where they're coming from. And I think that with the archetypal relationships, you not only get to understand where they're coming from, you get to understand where it's coming from within them, and how to bridge that so that they have the strength and the skills to understand what's going to bring them closer to center. So like if you're being triggered with something, and so you dig into that trigger, and you don't stop digging until you have found the gold, because every trigger, every upset, every hurt has deep meaning behind it. And once you get to the core of that and you start accepting it, you feel it through your whole body and you let it go. It's all about releasing and surrendering that feeling so that it doesn't trigger you anymore. And then when you're out and you see that same thing that would trigger you happening, it's just gone. And you're much more at ease and at peace, and you can find joy in different things that you never thought you could before.
I agree. That concept of holding space has been showing up here and there, but I wonder if it's actually undervalued or underestimated the importance of it. Because what is the opposite of holding space? It is dismissing people, dismissing their emotion and what they are all about. So, how do you how would you explain to somebody what holding space is actually?
I think it's more like letting people feel heard. If they need to be seen, you're seeing them, you're hearing them, and you're allowing yourself to almost feel how they're feeling so that you can project the higher level of consciousness to them to bring them to where they need to be in order to release how they're feeling. So I think it's more not exactly holding the space, but allowing them to be heard and validated so that they know that the feeling is their feeling, but in order to feel better, it needs to be released.
Absolutely. And I think that holding space does not comes automatically to us, or at least to most of the people. You don't just are born with that ability to hold space for others. I think it's a trained ability that one has to develop and hone as a skill in itself, because what I see happening is why it could be difficult for somebody to hold space is that if they have unresolved triggers within themselves, when they having somebody in that space trying to be heard, it would trigger that person. And so both people would be triggered. So holding space, in my view, actually comes from dedication to self-improvement and resolving the personal triggers and personal patterns and anything that is in the way, so that when the other person is in this space and is wanting to be heard and validated, it would not cause this tension. And that is the entire work of personal development, I think.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It is very much a skill that needs to be practiced over and over again, because like they said, I think most people are trying to think of an answer instead of listening to what the person's saying and allowing them to be heard. You're more reactive versus actively listening.
Yes, it's receptive versus reactive. It takes time to develop this kind of ability. It is an ability of an elder, the way I perceive it, to be able to hold space for others and allow them that space so that they can heal themselves. Because even the most potent healers, they don't do anything for the people other than allow them to heal themselves in that space. And I think it's very important right now in the time and space and place that we are, that we cultivate more leaders like that who are able to hold space for others.
I love that. And at the same time, it's like everything arises in the discussion of it, right? So if you're not listening, then somebody's going to stop discussing it. And if they're not discussing it, then the answers won't arise out of them. So I love that you said that, because the more, like when you hear somebody talk about what they need to do, the answers just come out if you keep the discussion going. So I love that you said that.
Yeah, my favorite approach is yes and, which is out of improvisation. It's a technique used in improvisation, and it always continues the conversation. The but no always stops it. And I find that a lot of people almost kind of prepare themselves for certain responses, and that's why they listen to react and not listen to receive, because they might be afraid to be triggered by something and not know how to deal with it, so they always have a prepared arsenal of responses, and it's almost like their mind is looking for which response am I going to provide right now, instead of just being with it, instead of just going and playing along and being spontaneous. And that is the quality actually of the magician archetype, which is the fluidity, flexibility, and being able to come up with levity in the conversation.
Yes. And you know what? That brought me back to before I did all this work. I would just not say anything because I couldn't speak if, like, there was no answers coming to me if something came up that was controversial. So I love that you said that, because like having all of that in the background just wasn't there for me. Be more centered and understand that conflict is fine. It's healthy. Versus before I was like, oh my gosh, I need to run away. I need to hide.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who find conflict terrifying because if they are community oriented, all they care about is connections. And when those connections are threatened and they have no tools or skills to repair those breakages, it is terrifying for the person. And I have great compassion for them not knowing what to do with themselves or with the situation. And the only thing they can do is just retract like a turtle inside the shell. And that is really not helpful in most situations, but that's the best they can do.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I feel like there's been so much transformation with learning the archetypal relationships even.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I think about all the amount of like even personal work that I have done on myself, to myself, with all the things I have learned, it has become so clear to me how much more there is still to learn. It is kind of the more you know how much you don't know. It is really never ending.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And it's just so exciting though. Like you don't want to stop. I'm like,
Well, it's like they say the new level, new devil, but at the same time, new level, new tools and new abilities, like in a game, like in the video game, you have new characteristics and ability when you level up. And so it becomes exciting to actually live the life and face the challenges because you know that with every challenge, you're going to get new tools to deal with things in so much better way.
yeah, now I just want to practice using those tools and practice and practice and practice.
Yeah, well, it's like they said, I heard a metaphor once. You get new windshield wipers, and they're so brand new. They are extremely well designed, and they're for every kind of weather, and they're just indestructible. So when you get them, all you want is to face those extreme weather types so that you can actually test them.
That's a great metaphor. I like that. Bring
And
me the snow, the rain, and the hail. Well, we do live in Ontario, so or I live in Ontario, so sometimes we do get all of it all on the same day.
oh yeah, yeah, it's the weather in Canada can be quite wild, and we Canadians are much used to the extremes. Either it's too cold or too hot, and we almost always land with some kind of ice storm at the end of the spring or at the end of the winter. So in closing, what would be your message to all the listeners who are maybe struggling to also show up and reluctant to be fully themselves and reluctant to promote themselves and show their face and talk about how great they are? What would be your message to them?
Show up for you. It's all about you. So develop yourself. Make sure that you're saying those positive things to yourself. You're feeling those positive feelings. Like wake up in gratitude. Be so grateful to be here, to have the voice, and being grateful for the voice and using the voice will explode and make you grow and contribute. Like life is about growth and contribution. So we need to do that and we need to speak out. Like it helps so many other people. We say on our calls all the time, your story matters. So the more people that speak up and share, the more everybody learns from them because there's no question that only one person has. Speak up, move ahead, take risks, be yourself.
I love that. And there's something to be said about the aspect of speaking up as it is being more and more prominently advocated for the people who might have been more reluctant to step into the light, who wanted to stay behind the scenes, who wanted to just not be visible. Speaking up is something that is being brought up as a new form of communication, but also a new form of collaboration. speaking up about your personal experience, about your story, about your truth, things that matter to you personally. And speaking with the intent to make things better, not with the intent to accuse, not with the intent to berate or belittle others or create conflict, but to make things better through communication, through clarity, through inspiration and motivation as well. So that is my personal approach to that. And I loved everything we have discussed. And so where could people find more about you?
I'm on Facebook at Kimberly Marcoux. And I also I have email, kimmay@yahoo.com or coachkim@gmail.com. And yeah, I'm on Instagram and all the other TikTok, Twitter, not Twitter, X, sorry.
Yeah, amazing. I will add the description below and I will add the links to that. So if anybody wants to follow you, they can do that. And this was a beautiful, beautiful conversation. I enjoyed it so much. And I am grateful for us being able to delve into this subject of archetypes and business and self-promotion and all of that.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it as well. So I appreciate you having me on.
Yes, and thank you everybody for listening and tuning in. And we will see you next time in another episode. So stay tuned and have a great week. Thank you.